It is fall and it's time for soups. And one of my family's favorite soups is potato soup. And there's so many different ways that people make potato soup, but I want to talk about how you make it in one pot. You make it luscious. You don't have to put any flour in it to make it thick and pasty, but you have a really thick, nice soup that tastes wonderful. So the first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to take bone broth, about a quart of bone broth. We're going to go ahead and put it in a very large stock pot. And one of the reasons that I do this is I don't like to use a lot of water because I am going to use whipping cream. And if I use whipping cream, I don't need the extra fat in the soup. And what I'm going to do while we're talking about how to prepare this soup is I'm going to go ahead and add the diced onions. And I'm going to put it on the stove and let it start cooking for about 4 or 5 minutes to soften up the onions before we get started. And notice I'm doing all this in one pot. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is you're going to bake your potatoes. You're going to bake your potatoes before you start your soup. One of the reasons that I bake potatoes is that they're nice and fluffy. A lot of the moisture has been pulled out, so they will soak up the liquid that you put in to make with your soup. And the other thing is I really hate food waste. So I already have 11 of my potatoes just chopped up. They're not nice little cubes. They're just chopped potatoes. I'm going to show you how I do that. Now, I usually do this when I'm having company because, as I said, I hate food waste. And so I'll take the potato and I just score it. Make sure that you keep the outside nice and firm. And then what I'm going to do is just take the insides out. You just scoop them out, keep the hull, because you're going to make potato skins with this. And that way there's no food waste. The other thing is you don't have that pot and all that water and the diced potatoes. You don't have to peel the potatoes. So I keep a nice hull to make my potato skins with. So I just do that with all the potatoes, put them in there, and as I said, cut through it. Make some nice scores, scoop it out, and your potato soup is going to taste wonderful because you've done this instead of boiling your potatoes. We'll just set those aside. The other thing you can do is just kind of chop this up a little bit. Okay, so you've got your potatoes. One of the things that I like to do is make sure I use bone broth. Never put water in your soup. And have you ever wondered when you go to the grocery store and you've got all these different items that you can choose from, and people choose regular milk. Regular milk is not meant to be used in soups, and especially if you're wanting to boil the soup or cook it fast, you need a little more fat in your soup so that the milk doesn't curdle. Ever go to a restaurant and it looks like it's curdled around the edges because they've used milk? They haven't used whipping cream or half and half. Either one of those will work a lot better than milk. And if you're going to have potato soup, skim milk is not the way to go. So make sure if you're having it, have a little smaller bowl. If you're worried about the calories, have a luscious bowl of potato soup. Now, what we've done is we have put our bone broth and our onions in our bone broth. And let's pretend that it's gone for about 10 minutes. That would be about the amount of time that you would need to cut up all of your potatoes to get ready to go in here, and your onions will be softened. We'll take it off the stove. And what we're going to do is we're going to add our potatoes. So our potatoes just go in here, just like this. And what they're going to do is they are going to soak up that wonderful bone broth that has lots of protein in it. And if you can't find bone broth where you live, what you need to do then is get stock instead of just plain broth. Stock has got a lot richer flavor to it. And then, as I said, we've got one pot. to stir that in a little bit. This is what it looks like. And then the other items that we're going to add will be garlic. We're going to add bacon. The recipe is on my website. A little bit of green onion, and I'll tell you where you can find this recipe in a few moments. And cheddar cheese, but we're going to wait and add this at the end. The other thing that we're going to add, and once again, one pot, you do not have to get several things dirty. You've baked your potatoes, putting everything into one pot. And now I'm going to show you what it looks like in here. And there is a lot of bacon, the green onions. We added the white onions because we needed the flavor, but the green onions added a little bit of color and a little bit of interest to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a cup and about a quarter of the heavy whipping cream. Now remember, we're not adding 3 cups of milk, regular milk. We're not adding butter. What we're doing is we're adding this rich milk so that we don't have to add water, and we've got a nice flavor to our potato soup. The last thing we're going to do is salt and pepper to your taste. Some people like less salt, some like more. Same thing with pepper. So I'm just going to add what my family normally likes. And then we are going to cook this for about 30 minutes on the stove. This doesn't take long. If you've already done your potatoes in the oven, they're already cooked. Everything in here just needs to get nice and hot. This is the first video. Once it's done, watch video number 2, and I'll show you how to thicken your soup without adding any flour to it at all. You don't want to add flour to soup. It takes away from the flavor, and we're going to use it with what's already in this pot, so stay tuned. As promised, I told you how you could thicken your soup without adding a lot of flour and ruining the flavor of the soup. One of the things I've already done is I have taken about a cup of the soup that is cooking in the pot. And what I do is I just add it to my food processor. And I do about 3 cups of this. I've already done 1 cup, but only fill it about halfway or it will all explode over the top. And what I do then is just pulse it until I get a thick liquid. And you can see it looks like mashed potatoes. So you can either do that or you can add some mashed potatoes. There's a lot of prepared mashed potatoes out there. I've known people to add potato flakes to their soup. Do anything except add flour to that soup because it's going to ruin it. So you'll add this in, let it cook on top of the stove for about 30 minutes on medium heat. Make sure that you keep stirring it. And the very last thing you're going to do is add in your shredded sharp cheddar cheese, and then you're going to stir it and it'll be ready to serve. I hope to see you on my Facebook page at Kentucky Spirited Chef, or you can see all the products that I have plus the recipes on KentuckySpiritedChef.com.